Okay, welcome everyone to another research practices video. So today we are focusing on research ethics, legal and safety considerations. So the reason we talk about this is because when you are doing research, and this is even going up to university, there are actually boards that have to approve your research when you get into higher education, especially if you're one of those people who are really aspiring to get into, say, like medicine, or if you're going to go on to do a master's degree, research actually is an integral and part of this. But you must get approval from like a code of ethics board and stuff like that before you're allowed to carry it out. Okay, and this is the case across all situations in when you're doing carrying out any kind of research in any kind of academic field. So it could be that you're doing it for a university. It could be that you're employed by a company. It doesn't matter. Research ethics, legal and safety considerations are really, really important to identify, and they must be identified prior to undertaking the research. So, things that we already know. Okay, so we know that research ethics is basically the application of moral rules and professional codes of conduct in the process that we adhere to during the process of collecting and reporting and publishing our research. Okay, so this could be for all of us. This is us when we're collecting our information, and then when we're writing our information, and then also the responsible publication of our work. So responsible publication is basically when you submit it for you. Responsible publication for other people is submitting it to, say, a journal, or submitting it to, maybe you're submitting your PhD to a board or whatever it is, okay? But basically, it is a professional um, code of conduct and moral values and rules that must be adhered to. Things that you need to consider. Okay, so these are the things that you need to consider before you come up with a list of things that you need to write about. So you need to identify and discuss ethical concepts and issues. So if you're using people in any situation, so a lot of you will be looking at your surveys and your interviews, what ethical concepts and issues do you need to consider before you should do that? What about ethical and safe research processes? So, and here we're looking at the rights of people, the rights of workers. We're looking at acknowledgement of sources. So this is where you get your information from. We're looking at observing protocols. So this might be OC health and safety standards, or if you're building something, what are the safety protocols that you must consider? And also when dealing with organizations or other bigger companies or whatever it is. Okay? You need to appreciate the ethical and legal dimensions of your research and the information. So for some of you, if you choose to do some action research, for example, and you choose to do something like where you actually need to interact with younger children, there is massive legal stuff that you need to consider before you can work with young people. And there's actually, you need to actually get clearances for that. And that is a process that you need to go through. And there is a payment and a clearance required. So there's all these things that we really need you to reflect upon and think about before you progress in your research. And then honestly, and then we go on to talk about the personal ethics. So again, we're going from the corporate to the personal. Okay. Did I already cover it? No. Okay. More of what we need to consider. So you need to explore the different ideas, the rights, and so these are so rights and ideas and obligations and any kind of ethical principles. So this is in what you need to consider in terms of your research, but also when you're thinking about your research participants. What rights do you think what rights do your participants have? What rights do you have in terms of what you can expect from your participants? Plus, what obligations you then hold to them. Okay, this is really important. You have an obligation as a researcher to respect the privacy and the right of anyone that's going to participate in your research to not be named. And that is a big one. You should not, if you do not have express written permission from any participants to publish their name or any of the information that they give you, then you will not be allowed to use it, because by using it without their permission, you're actually going against their rights for their privacy, and also the obligation you have to them to be an honest researcher and respecting their rights. Any kind of workplace safety principles, practices, and procedures. This is getting back to anyone that's wanting to do anything with food or wood or anything that requires you to be in a potentially hazardous area. So it might be that you're carrying out scientific experiments. Okay, what are the procedures to carry out a safe scientific experiment? What are the procedures that we know for safe food handling? For like personal hygiene? What about occupational health and safety? All these things need to be taken into place. And also, if there's any ethical dilemmas and ethics in a range of the situations that you need to consider. So this is lots and lots and lots and lots of information. Okay, I've broken this down in the next couple of slides into into next one slide, so it's a little bit more easy to consider. So these are the ethical principles that you need to consider. You need to think about how honest you're going to be with people, if you're going to remain objective. So remember how I was talking about in a previous lesson where we talked about the importance of remaining neutral when you're writing your questions for your research. So remaining neutral or remaining non-biased in the collection and use of your information. So when I say objective, so maybe the information you get back in your research does not actually quite match up to how you wanted the data to look in order to answer your question. If you then alter the information or select to leave out parts of the data on purpose so it looks like it still answered your question, are you remaining objective, and are you being honest, and are you being transparent, and are you upholding a sense of integrity in your research? And the answer is no. Okay, so all these things. So we've also got carefulness. Okay, so carefulness can be anything around health and safety, or it can be around in the dealing of sensitive information to do with people. So again, if you're breaching some of those more difficult questions, like maybe it might be around sexuality, it might be around religion, whatever it is, you just need to be careful in dealing with that information, how you store it, where you store it, making sure people's names aren't always attached to them. So going from there, which is why doing things digitally makes it a lot easier. Other things to consider: accountability. So this is accountability for you, not necessarily your research participants, because it is an optional thing. You cannot force people to participate. Intellectual property is a massive one. So this is where you need to respect other researchers and other authors by referencing their work correctly. And this is a whole separate lesson that we'll get onto in how to reference. So we are moving, because we're moving obviously into senior years, and we're moving into stage 1 and then stage 2, knowing how to reference and then produce a proper reference list is absolutely necessary. Okay, so we will go through this. We'll spend probably one of the lessons coming up on how to do this effectively and properly. And I will most likely be asking everyone to follow the Harvard referencing format. And I'll show you some cheap ways in where you can do that as well. So confidentiality, again, huge. Your research participants have the right to remain anonymous. You need to make sure that you uphold that. Responsible publication, again, you're not going to produce a document if you have doctored the data. So if you've changed the data in any way, or if you have not referenced properly, so you have not respected people's confidentiality, or you have not respected or other people's intellectual property, you would not then go publish that. Okay? Copy and paste is one of the worst things you can do, and that is actually a breach of intellectual property, and it comes under copyright law. And be aware that as teachers, that actually gets checked as you write. and then we'll go through that in a later time. A responsible mentoring is probably not overly appropriate for you right now, but it's one to consider. Respect for colleagues, that comes back to intellectual property. Social responsibility, so this might be in terms of if, again, you're getting into more that kind of political, moral area. Non-discriminative, so this means that if you come across someone who has a very differing opinion to you, that does not mean that you do not necessarily include their information in your research. It's more and you do not shame them in any way, shape, or form, or and you do not make it known to others that they have a very different opinion. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. It's just when we talk about creating safe spaces at school, it means that there is an appropriate time and place for things. Um, Legality and competence. So competence is just your ability to do things. Um, that's not one that I would entirely be harping on about. Legality only if the subject area requires it. Animal care, I'm really hoping no one is going to do any kind of animal testing in this. And human subject protection. So human subject protection, again, you could almost link that back to a form of responsible, like you being a responsible and accountable researcher. If you're using people in terms of just gaining information, but generally speaking, this is more kind of like medical field, so I guess that's one we don't need to consider too heavily. When we get a chance to go back to class, we will be looking at this as a group, and we will be doing some small group discussions, and then I'll get feedback from all of you. So there are 5 different scenarios in which that I will ask you to discuss. So I'm just going to skip that part for now. This is an example written by a person for their in their oh my gosh, Karen, get it together, for their folio. So for your research project folio. So this is what they wrote. And I've just realized that there is a spelling error and I can't tell if I did that or if they did that. Anyway, so this talks about, so you can see here that so she talks about, and this is a girl, sorry, I know I'm saying it, I'm using the she pronoun. I know that I actually, no, I don't know they're a female, sorry, I will take that back. This person, so they, this person selected their topic, which was they wanted to identify activities that would improve fine motor skills specifically for a particular age group. So fine motor skills is something that has gone down a lot over the years, and there's been a lot of attention on it. So as they go on to state, that I'm interacting with kids, therefore I need to undergo a police check as part of, so they're doing this as part of their action research. The other thing that they need to do, generally speaking, if they're doing a police check, is you now need a working with children, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, you generally need like a working with children check as well. So there's usually 2 things you need. And if they've gone on to say that it's a legal requirement, especially because they're 18 years old, meaning that they are an adult. So they're at 18, you're legally classed as an adult and you can be held accountable for your own actions. So you absolutely need these, for legal reasons, they need these things completed before they can go on. So this person actually went to a childcare centre. And also getting parental consent for their children to participate. And then they also need, and they did that in the form of a form. That was a horrible sentence, but you get the gist. And then they go on to talk about guiding questions, receiving feedback, and referencing correctly in order to not breach copyright laws or plagiarize. Okay, so this is the example that I've given. This is from a very high grade band. So this person for their folio received an A+. This one I refer back to quite a bit, not because it's an A+, because I really like the way it's structured. And I've used a lot of my templates and scaffolding to kind of as this is my guide when I've created them. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys think, and I would like some feedback on that before the end of the year. Okay, every single student in their in the activity that you're about to do needs to include these 5 things. So intellectual property and respecting colleagues. So you need to have a sentence in there that's correctly referencing all sources, including images, as to not breach plagiarism or copyright laws. You don't have to use that wording exactly, but it must be in there. You need to have confidentiality. This is respecting the rights of the individuals who have involved themselves in your research. So these are your respecting the rights of your research participants to remain anonymous, or or you respecting their rights if they do not wish to be named, or that they've given you permission to be named in your research. Okay, really important that you get that permission, and that should be written permission, either by email, whatever it is, text message. We just need written proof. And the other ones that you need to consider is openness and honesty. So this is in regards to you will dedicate your time and your effort to not misleading readers, researchers, or participants with incorrect information or data. So you're not going to tell them that the survey is about one thing when it's actually about another, and you're going to be honest with them about the kind of questions you're going to ask. You're going to ask them, and you're going to be open with them in terms of how you're going to use this information. Okay, so if you answer this survey, I plan to include this, but I will not be using names or whatever it is. Okay, so they're the key ones that every single person must include. So there are with everyone else, what you need to do, or sorry, with all the others, what you need to do is identify the ones that are aligned to your particular research and the way you're collecting your research, because that is what's going to impact what you write here. Okay? So, time to write. You now need to write a paragraph. So similar to the example here, as you can see, so it's about, I'm going to say roughly about 6 or 7 sentences. I need you to write a paragraph in draft form. This is not going to be the final form that it takes, but in draft form, answering this question. What are the ethical, legal, and safety things that I need to consider for my research topic? Okay. So as I said, you're answering this question. You must include these ones, and you can use this one as the exemplar as a bit of a guide of what to do next. Okay. I will leave that with you for now. Please submit. So there is a link up on DAMAP where to upload this. So if you're not handwriting it, please do it in a Word document or some kind of digital format. Upload it to DAMAP. This is not marked at this point in time because it's going to form part of a larger assessment piece later on. But please do finish this by the end of the lesson and submit it through to DAMAP, please. Okay, thank you so much for joining me once again, and I look forward to seeing you later.